Hi everyone, Crypto Vatsik here. Thanks for joining. Please do subscribe to my Twitter at Crypto Vatsik. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, Crypto Vatsik, where I post videos and updates on the market, cryptocurrency assets pretty frequently. So please like and comment and share with your friends if you find it helpful. I do share more frequent updates and just daily thoughts on Twitter as well. So let's get into it. Today, I just wanted to talk more about Bitcoin and the market overall and some of the indicators that I'm seeing just with respects to some of the RSI indicators on Bitcoin, as well as volume, Bitcoin dominance, and open interest charts. So with that said, another relevant chart that I have here is basically Bitcoin USD longs. So these are long positions that are being um, basically put into the market on Bitcoin, and you can't trade this chart, actually this chart itself, but it is a good indicator in the market. I think that shows when people are really starting to enter more long positions or taking out their long positions. And you could see the inverse of this would be the BTC USD short positions chart. Again, you can't trade these charts, but I think they do act as an indicator, and it's something to consider with your analysis. So you can look at basically the highs that we've had on the Bitcoin open interest chart, and these highs that we've seen in the past have marked pretty significant levels on the price chart. So first high back here was in March 2018. Then we had relatively another peak here at February in 2019, again in December 2019, and then more recently July of 2021. So we're making quite a high peak here. We haven't seen this before. It's a bit unprecedented times, but it's interesting to me. I'm paying attention to this. I want to see how this will affect the market. I already have my thoughts on how this will affect it. You can look back at the Bitcoin price chart and see that these peaks have on the open interest chart have marked pretty significant bottoms on Bitcoin. So we saw the first these arrows match up with the previous chart, but we saw the first peak here. Although this wasn't the true official bottom, we did see quite the drop here later on, but it did mark a bottom for sure. A macro bottom of some sort back in April 2018. The next peak on the open interest chart we saw here was February 2019, which you could argue was the bottom, or quite close to it at least. And then the next one in December 2019, which after that was not quite the bottom here. We did spike down lower temporarily, but you could chalk it up to Black Swan event. This was the COVID crash, kind of unprecedented, unforeseen. But again, it recovered quite quickly back up to these levels, and then proceeded to take us to the bull market. So those are three, significant points. And then more recently, we saw it did mark a bottom in July 2021, where we saw this accumulation here, and there's multiple divergences on smaller time frame in here. But essentially, it marked pretty much the peak of bottom here on Bitcoin as well before we headed up to make a new all-time high. So it's something to consider. I take it into my analysis overall, and I'll have my own bias as everyone does, but I think that it's good to have your reasons for why you're getting long or why you're getting short. Not just an instinct, or you think that the world's going to crap. So it's good to have specific reasons, technical reasons that you believe that price is either going to go up or down in the near future or long term. So this is definitely something that I'll be taking into consideration here. Another one that I wanted to show you was essentially Rect Capital on Twitter shared this chart of Bitcoin RSI reaching historic lows. So back in 2017 or 2015 here, 2019, and then recently we're getting not quite there yet at the absolute low, but we are getting to that territory. So these are historic moments, and if you believe history, often rhymes, then you can expect, to see something like we've seen in the past again in the near future. So here's Bitcoin on the weekly price chart. And again, just to bring light to what Rect Capital shared on Twitter with respect to historical lows of RSI, this is just a different way of looking at it. So when we enter these, oversold territories on RSI down here, I think that it's pretty clear that they have marked significant lows on price action. So back here in 2018, we hit a low, and in March 2020, of course, we hit a low. You could argue we hit a low in here. It's a bit closer to the median. You could argue on support there, but essentially we're coming in here to make a new low at some point. So, it's tough to know exactly how low the price will go, but you can just look at RSI. RSI is an indicator of its relative strength index of an asset. So basically, when it gets up into this upper territory, it's considered overbought. And then when it gets down into the lower territory, it's considered oversold. So we are getting near the oversold. We're not technically oversold yet, at least on the weekly time frame on Binance here. But we are getting near, a historic low potentially, and it could take time to play out. We had a bit of a V reversal here on March 2020, bit of a different time, so hard to compare it to that. I'd compare it to more something like this back in 2018 when we did make a low. We had a bit of a V-shaped reversal temporarily. Just zoom in here. We had a bit of a V-shaped reversal temporarily, but then, of course, it had some accumulation patterns here that took some time for it to build up strength. So that's something I find interesting as well. I will be closely watching this. I think that it goes back to what I've said in my previous videos that there's going to be a time of accumulation, and we are getting near a bottom. I'm not as concerned at the moment with how far down we go, unless we're, talking about nuking back down to zero. I'll be accumulating somewhere in this area over time, and I do share those targets in my previous videos, so go watch them if you'd like to know that. Another thing that a lot of analysts look at is volume, of course. And a lot of people say that moves are preceded by volume, so they're watching for the volume to confirm a move. And so you could argue same thing. Back in 2018, we had this terrible candle, weekly candle, that brought us from 5,600 US all the way down to as low as 3,700. We saw barely any volume before, so this was a good sign that a significant move was coming, either down or up, and we're just kind of hanging off the cliff here. So of course that could happen either way right now. If we start to see volume kind of tapering off and getting a little bit boring, it might be preceded by a significant move. We might have a significant move down. So if we see this, something like that, it's a terrible line, but you know what I mean. So if we see this and the volume kind of starts to taper as well, you could expect either a big jump up if the volume spiked, or of course, and I know this is the classic, it could go up or down, but we could see a big move down and volume spiking up, right? So I think that the key here is that the significant move in volume will at least give us a clear direction for the short term. But even with that said, I mean, there's spikes in this volume here that we saw back in 2020, and it quickly recovered, right? And so then you start to see volume do this again. You start to see it do something like this where it tapers off. It kind of hovers, it's accumulating, it's getting, a little bit boring. There's less moves up, and eventually it'll break that, right? So just like a trend line, eventually the volume will come in, it'll break that downward trend or decline in volume, and then you'll see that expansion. So, I expect we'll see something similar to that in the near future, where we might see volume starting to taper down. We might, it might be a significant dip downwards if we see a large volume and spike, just to, it's kind of like a kick in the market, or knee-jerk reaction where it's like, okay, let's get it over with. Takes out a lot of liquidity, people capitulate, and then the market can finally slowly start to recover after that. Same thing here. Last year, we saw volume start to taper down here, which was, a bearish signal when we start to see volume declining and price inclining. Distributive structure up here near the top, terrible wick above, and then of course brought us back down, and that's when the volume really had that spike back up here. It broke that downward trend. So that's what I'm talking about. It could have that significant spike, and create a dump in the market. But again, it'll have some sort of bottom, and then volume will start to taper off. And it was interesting, this one, we actually didn't really see that volume take off in this move either. So it's interesting. I mean, it was a significant move, but a little bit weak in my opinion. Swing failure pattern up here, or technically we made a new all-time high. So we did break this previous peak, but volume's just been kind of boring since then, and then just a slow decline, right? So that's kind of my thoughts, at least with volume as well. Bitcoin dominance chart. This is not something you can actually trade. It's just another indicator that I tend to check in on, at least in terms of what altcoins might be looking forward to doing. Of course, Bitcoin dominance in the market saw its major downturn here. I think with a lot of new projects coming into the market, and a lot of new assets coming into play, and of course, when Bitcoin dominance crashed, that's when we saw the major spikes and runs on a lot of altcoins. And then, of course, what goes up must come down. So altcoin market took a pretty big hit once Bitcoin started coming back up and gaining some strength again in the market. So I think that this is just something to consider. It's not something you can trade. It shouldn't tell you when and when not to buy, but it's just something to consider in your overall thesis. I would expect that this would make a new low, that Bitcoin dominance would make a new low past this 36 percentile point. It could take some time. We could see Bitcoin lead the charge and run up to 100K, which would bring our dominance up, and then at some point it would peak out, and that's when we might see the run for altcoins with Bitcoin dominance coming to new lows. So until that happens, I don't believe altcoins have seen their full potential, but it's just something to consider. Thanks a lot for joining, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Please do check me out on Twitter. I share lots of frequent updates on there. Really, really active on there. So please give me a follow, comment your thoughts on my tweets, and let's have a conversation. Hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.